Hello and welcome to my creative studio. This is where the chaos happens. Yes, sometimes there's magic, but there's also a lot of chaos. I wanted to invite you into my studio because I've realized recently that I'm not giving myself enough time to create, and it's actually taking away from my power. So as I step up into helping a lot more of my clients with one-on-one work, it's really important for me to replenish and to get these insights and this channeled wisdom through so that I can impart it onto them. A lot of that happens through creativity, through flow state. Because yes, as a hypnotherapist, I spend a lot of time in flow state. I spend a lot of time meditating and in alternate states of consciousness. But one of my favorite ways to do this is by creating. So today, in today's episode, I want to talk about project managing your life. Because I talk about this a lot in the methodology of heartscaping, that your life is this creative project, and for a lot of us, we kind of just go with the flow. We go with what we've been told we can have, rather than figuring out what we really want. So if you want to project manage your life and you want to actually have the life that you came here to have, because you came here to have the life of your dreams, you didn't come here to suffer. Although what I'm going to say is probably going to contradict that. In some cases, souls do come to experience a life experience that is, from a human perspective, what we would call suffering. But on a soul level, there's a curiosity and a willingness to experience that, because as energy, you can't experience this human form and all of the emotions that come with it. So if you're a soul, having the opportunity to experience, even if it's sadness, even if it's grief, even if it's physical pain, it's something that you're really curious about. Anyway, that's probably a whole other topic for another day. But when it comes to this project management of your life, first of all, you got to have a vision. You got to figure out what it is that you want to do, be, or accomplish in this life. And I often work with my clients around we often see our vision as something that we can accomplish and that we can do, and that is of service to others. And this is always the end goal. The end goal is always to be of service to others. But where we get it wrong is we think that in sacrificing ourselves for the greater good, we're doing what is asked of us. And that is a remnant of a lot of religions around the world who have controlled people through fear and told them that you have to earn your right to go to heaven or to, whatever it is. You don't have to earn anything. You're already worthy. Like you were created and you are worthy to have whatever it is that you desire. This is a co-creation process, right? So just go with that, knowing that you have nothing to prove, and there's not a list of things that you need to tick off so that you can say that you lived a good life. But there are things that we yearn for, that our soul yearns for, and that is what requires us to project manage our lives so that we can hit those goals, because it's part of our purpose and it's part of our soul mission. But a lot of this is not about what you do, it's about who you become, the energy that you embody. What that means is that, say you want to be a good person. It's not about the actions that you do. It's not about the daily things that you do to prove that you're a good person. It's about the embodiment of kindness and compassion, and actually being that and moving through the world as that. And there's an element of sovereignty in that. We don't need to self-sacrifice in order to live our purpose. So let's get back to that vision. Do you know what your vision is? If you don't, that's okay. I have resources and meditations that can help you tune into that and figure out what that is. To be honest, the first time that I did one of these practices myself, it terrified the hell out of me, because I tuned in, And I asked myself, what do I really, really, really want more than anything else in this lifetime? And the answer that came to me was change the world. And I was like, whoa, is that all? That all? Just tiny, tiny little thing there. It was huge and it terrified me. That's not the case for everybody. But I know if you're watching this, you're probably part of the soul group of people who came here to actually have a positive impact on the world. But you get to do that in your own way. Nobody gets to decide what that looks like to you. So your vision is very much authentic to you, it's unique to you, but it may require some work to be able to pinpoint what that is. So we can start by pinpointing that by looking at your values. Like, what do you value? Here's another thing that requires quite a bit of work, because often our values are conditioned into us by society, by family, by experience. And our core values are something that we need to uncover. And that can require a certain level of healing to start with. So this is all the prep work that leads up to that vision. But once you have that vision, there's going to be things that are going to be in the way. So looking at, from a heartscaping perspective, I want you to imagine that your vision is like, what is it that you want to create in this plot of land that is yours? Do you want to create a jungle type botanical garden? Or do you want to create a giant playground? Or do you want to create a gazebo with, certain elements or water features? Or what is it that is in this internal landscape ideally for you? And there can be lots of things, but just figuring out what that looks like to you. Then there's going to be the reality of what's in your experience right now and what needs to be moved out of your experience. So if we come back to this analogy of a plot of land, say you have your backyard, you want to do this project, that is your vision. That is what you see yourself having in that backyard to be able to enjoy your life to the fullest. Well, the reality is you've got to open your back door and have a really good look and realize that, well, maybe the soil isn't as fertile as it would need to be to hold the plants that you would like. Maybe you need to, level the soil in order to create the foundation for that gazebo that you can see in your mind, in your vision. Or maybe that looks like, looking at the boundary of your property, and are the boundaries clear and consistent, and are they keeping out some harmful, some rodents in your neighborhood? Or are they really clear? Do you need to repaint your fence? What aspect of what is there needs to change? This is always an inner job. I'm speaking in metaphors because for everyone, this is going to be different. Maybe when I said something about your fence, you were like, oh yeah, my boundaries are really crap. And there's that person that keeps on coming into my life without being invited. And I need to recreate those boundaries, make that fence a little bit solid so that they are no longer allowed in my sacred space, because your space is sacred and your energy is sacred. And not everybody gets to be invited into it and be able to remain there, right? So what's in the way of that vision becoming a reality? And there's work to do. There's things to move out. There's things to clean up. There's maybe things to repaint. And there may be some things that need a little bit more deeper work. So really digging in and excavating those old roots, and maybe replanting and regenerating that soil so that it can hold that vision. So what are your steps? That's the third part of this process. After we've figured out what the vision is, what's in the way of that vision coming true, where do we start? And here's where I think a lot of people get it wrong, is they think that starting means that they start with the end vision, right? They look at what they want to create at the end of the day, and they think that they, say, for example, I talked earlier about a gazebo. So you have this vision of a gazebo in your mind. You're already worrying about how you're going to decorate it, where you're going to find the fairy lights, if you're going to use cool tone or warm tone fairy lights, and what plants you're going to have climbing up it. But you're not there yet. Like, first you've got to work on the foundations to be able to build that in the first place. And a lot of people get completely overwhelmed because they're looking at the end details that actually, you know what, they're going to sort themselves out when you work on the foundations. So what are the first initial steps that you need to take? And generally, those first initial steps are going to require of you to look at who you believe yourself to be. Because if you have this vision, right, there's always going to be a part of you that's like, well, it's too hard, you can't do it, and you're not worthy of it anyway. Or there's going to be a part of you that's criticizing yourself for wanting something that seems so, maybe it seems more luxurious than what you had growing up. So you're judging yourself for wanting something like that. There's all of these inner influences that we need to sort out, that we need to get really clear on. And that comes down to who we believe ourselves to be, and understanding the influences that are all around us, that are influencing our every move, our every thought, and our every action. Because if you don't deal with that, you're going to end up just procrastinating. You're going to make vision board after vision board, and you're not going to take the action that it takes to actually make it happen. So the steps that you need to take in order to embody the identity of the person who can actually hold that vision, who can create that vision, will come down to pulling apart your identity, or your perceived identity. If you feel like you're the kind of person who does a particular thing or does not do a particular thing, those are limiting beliefs that you have about yourself. And it can be really interesting to notice when somebody suggests something to you, like, well, try this or try that. Are you coming up with excuses? And I've found this over and over again with clients when I start working with them, and I'm like, how would it feel if you were to do this or consider this particular idea? And if they say no 3 times in a row, I know that that person's very much stuck in their own limiting beliefs, or they're not willing to see a truth about themselves, and that is what's holding them back. Often people really like to make excuses about why they're stuck in the life that they have, because it takes a lot of courage and it takes a lot of effort to transform our lives from the inside out. That's the only thing that actually works, is doing that sustainable inner work. But the thing is, a lot of people are going to make excuses about why they can't. And it's like, well, I can't because I oh, one that I had recently is so funny. A client telling me that she couldn't afford to get the support that she needed, whether it was from myself or from somebody else. It's like, I can't afford it. But I know for a fact that that particular client spends a lot of money on her hair and makeup and her clothes and her holidays that she posts on Instagram. It's all about the appearances and what other people think of her. But when it comes down to actually showing up for herself and being in integrity with who she is, and showing up for the life that she desires beyond what people can see, she's not willing to do that work. And she tells herself, her story is that she can't afford it. So my my advice there was to look at, like, where does that money story come from? Oh, there we go. Comes back to worthiness. The same inner work that will actually yield incredible results in all areas of life is the one thing that's holding her back. So your steps, the first step is figuring out what is your major limiting belief that's holding you back from starting to create that. And, when it comes to our core limiting beliefs, they're not rocket science. We pretty much all have the same ones. But when you can get clear on what your one is and start to chip away at that, it's not something that you just click your fingers one day, or you work with a coach for a couple of weeks and then you're sorted. It's something that you chip away at and you go deeper and deeper. But as you go deeper and deeper, and you really intentionally work on shifting those limiting beliefs, the more you'll realize that your vision is actually coming to life before your very eyes. I've seen it many times before. That's where the magic comes in. So I hope that this in some way supported you or inspired you to actually go out there and either work on your vision or get clear on what your vision is, because everybody's got one. You didn't come here to just walk around aimlessly on this planet. Maybe your purpose is to just wander around and have fun, but for most of us, we have more to do than that. So if there's anything that you feel I may be able to support you with, just go and check out the links in the description box and hit me up if you think that I can help. In the meantime, happy creating to you. Mwah.